All right. Welcome officially to Spring 2025 Chemistry 141. So in this video, we're going to go through our course syllabus. I know we will meet on Fridays for lab, so I will see you in person. But because we are a hybrid course and part of our course material is being delivered online, I expect that you will be engaging with the course before we meet in person for the first time on Friday. So I would like to give you the rundown of the syllabus and our schedule for the semester so that you are ready to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up the syllabus here. Okay, all right, and I've got a dual monitor set up, so my head will be turned toward my main monitor now. All right, so here is our course syllabus. I am Jessica Stanfield. I will hold office hours on Wednesdays from 9 to 11 a.m. this semester. These will be entirely over Zoom since the lecture portion of our course is asynchronous and the Friday lab portion of our course lasts all day. If you do need an office hour that is in person, you are welcome to contact me and we can take a look at our schedules and I can figure out if there is time in my schedule that coincides with your schedule to meet you on campus for an in-person meeting in my office. Okay, our lecture is asynchronous. I will have all the lecture videos linked in Canvas, but I will be making them available publicly on my YouTube channel that I had to start during COVID because of everything. So you can view them either way. I've had some students that like to view them directly through Canvas. I have other students with the way their setup is at home or wherever they're studying, it's easier for them to go directly to YouTube. So I have both options available for you. Our lab will be on Fridays from 8 a.m. to 2:50 p.m. and it will meet in 3240. So if you took Chemistry 120 at Grossmont, this is the room directly next to the 120 classroom that's on the corner that you access from the outside catwalk. All right, so this is a first semester of a full year general chemistry course. At Grossmont, our course numberings are Chem 141 and 142 for our general chemistry sequence. And so we assume that you took your prep class and that you have retained the material from your prep class. Okay, this is, a situation where Chem 120 wasn't done in isolation. That was a prerequisite to this course, and you are required to have passed that with, a passing grade and be ready to move on to the next level. We will review some of the stuff from Chem 120 and then take the difficulty level up a notch because again, we expect that you have had that foundation in Chem 120 and are now ready to delve deeper into the subject at a higher difficulty level. Okay. So our lecture is asynchronous, but the way the credit hours work is, you're supposed to have 3 hours of lecture each week and 6 hours of lab. And so your lectures will be asynchronous over the internet, and the lab we will meet in person. Attendance at lab is required. You cannot do the lab at home. You have to be there on Fridays. Okay, chemistry takes a long time to learn. College takes a long time to learn. I know a lot of high schools have done away with a lot of the outside studying and homework, but that's not the way college works. My job is to deliver the content to you. Your job is to engage with it and learn it. Okay, so this takes, on average, about 2 hours per lecture hour and 1 hour per lab hour each week additional study time. So if we're supposed to have 3 hours of lecture, that's a minimum of 6 hours each week, minimum, engaging with the course material, studying, doing homework, etc. Watching the lecture videos does not count as part of that study time because that is your lecture time. Okay. If we have 6 hours per lab each week, you probably will have, several hours worth of extra work you need to do outside of lab. Pre-lab assignments, lab data analysis, lab report writing, post-lab questions, etc. So this is all part of, what is necessary to learn the subject. To really learn a subject, you have to engage with it. You can't just sit, listen to a lecture and go, oh, okay, I've learned that. You have to work at it. Okay. It takes a lot of outside time of repetition, working problems, reading the textbook, really delving into that material. I highly, highly recommend that you read each chapter before you watch the lecture videos. That way you're prepared for what you are about to learn. Okay, go back and solve extra example problems. You have to spend time learning the subject. It might be a struggle. Okay, learning often is, but it's a rewarding struggle once it all starts to click. All right, again, we expect that you have passed the prerequisites before being in this course. All right, we've got all these student learning outcomes and course objectives for our courses. You are welcome to read through them if you want to see some of the stuff that you will be learning throughout the semester. Okay, um, so obviously for our lecture, you will be on electronic devices the whole time because it's asynchronous and you're required to watch those outside of our lab time. But when we are together during our live class periods, these things need to be put away. I don't mind during an experiment if you get a text message and you have to make a quick response. Okay, that does happen, especially when you are, in class from 8 a.m. to 2:50 p.m. I get that. I'm not going to get on your case if I see you pull out your cell phone and do a quick text message. Okay. Some students like to take pictures of their experiment. That is also fine. I have no problem as long as you are still recording good observations. I have no problem if you want to snap a quick, picture of what you're working on to go back and look at or to include in your lab report. That's totally cool. I have some students that go, "Oh, this is neat. Can I take a video?" The answer is yes. You just can't have any of your classmates in the video. If you do take a video, the only people that can be in the video are yourself and your experiment. Okay, you cannot record any of your classmates. You also need to make sure that you're not recording any of their voices or any of that stuff. So videos are a little fussy. I do allow you to make them as long as you are making sure that you are not violating the privacy of any of your classmates. Okay, but that's it. That's all you should be using this stuff for. Um, in the lab, there will be downtime. There are sometimes experiments where you have to wait for water to boil before you can do anything, and you've already gotten everything else set up. Or you have to put something, and heat it for 10 minutes. Okay. During this period, you do need to be monitoring your experiment. This is not set it up in the hood, walk away from it, and completely ignore it, and then, remember 20 minutes later to go back to your hood. Okay. And so the temptation, especially these days when everybody is so connected to devices, is to pull out your phone and play a game, put in a pair of headphones, watch a video. That's not what that downtime is for. Okay. You are supposed to be engaged with the course when you are in class. So look at your data, see how your experiment's going. Chat with your lab partners. Sometimes we do things in partners. Maybe pull out some practice problems. There will be plenty of practice problems to work on. And talk to your lab partner about those. Work on them together. Maybe start looking at the post-lab questions. Okay? The downtime during lab is not for disengaging with the course. The downtime is for working on more course stuff. All right? So I'm going to, pay attention. You pull out your phone, you take a quick picture, cool. You pull out your phone and you sit there and you are zombied out to your phone watching videos or whatever. That's not okay. All right. If for some reason you have a phone call that you need to take, just step outside the room, take your phone call, and then come back in. Please don't answer the phone during class. It's very disruptive to everybody else. Okay. But engage in the course. You will get nothing out of your learning experience if you are disengaged and plugged into your device all the time. Okay? All right, you do need the textbook for the course. Ugh, it's very heavy. All right, it looks something like this. Okay. All right, we're going to be using the Master in Chemistry homework set that goes along with your book online. You will need to purchase the lab manual from the bookstore. Get the lab manual now. We are doing our first experiment on Friday. Okay, the first half of Friday will be some introductory lab stuff, lab reports, etc. And then our second half will be our first experiment because we're doing a block lab. Normally this course is done on the lab for this course is done on 2 different days of the week. So you have, Your first lab period and your second lab period, we're doing it all in one. Our first lab period is in the morning. Our second lab period is in the afternoon. And so we have to do a lab experiment this first week. You need to be prepared for that. Okay. So things that you should bring to class every single session: a pencil, a pen, because you have to record lab data in ink, a scientific non-programmable calculator. Don't bring your graphing calculators. You're not allowed to use them on exams. Don't use them when you're doing homework and other activities in class. Get used to and be comfortable with your scientific calculator. Okay? Um, I recommend that you bring your own Sharpie. Sometimes you need that to label things. We do have label tape. We've been really good about having label tape in the lab, and I usually have extra Sharpies up at the front of the room, but I buy them with my own money, and I only buy them so often, and so sometimes they grow legs and walk off because students forget to bring them back up. And I get it, because you're packing stuff up at the end and it's a rush, and so you throw things in your bag and you totally forget that you borrowed the pen from me instead of bringing your own. So it's not a bad idea to have your own, because I cannot guarantee that all my pens won't grow legs and walk away. All right. You will need a USB flash drive. We do use these LabQuest handheld devices for some of our data acquisition. We don't use them for every lab, but we do use them for several labs. And the only way to get the data off of them is with a USB flash drive. I have a few extras that I keep with me for emergencies, like if a student brings a flash drive and it fails for some reason and it doesn't work, okay, but you need to have one. Okay, I cannot guarantee that if you save your data to those devices, it will still be there if you try to come back and get it off later. You need to have a USB flash drive. And then you do need to have a lab notebook. I don't mind if you have single copy lab notebooks instead of the old carbon copy ones, because you'll be submitting everything to me on Canvas. You will not be pulling out the carbon pages from your lab notebook. So it's up to you what style lab notebook. I typically recommend that you get one that's quad ruled, that's the graph paper, because it's much easier to sketch out your data tables on graph paper than it is on regular lined paper. Again, we're going to use Master in Chemistry for homework. This is integrated to Canvas, and this is a common requirement across all Chem 141 sections at Grossmont. So this is something set by the department, not by me. All right, this is part of our making sure that all of our courses have a common, experience, just like the homework in Chem 120. So this is a departmental homework requirement. Okay, our lectures are asynchronous. You can view them on your own time. Now, here's the thing. The lecture topics each week are going to correspond to Friday's lab. So you need to make sure that you are actually keeping up with this. So to this end, I'm going to require you to submit your lecture notes. Okay, I do this for my online classes and my in-person classes to make sure that everybody is actually engaging with our material. I know K-12 is not as big on teaching students note-taking skills anymore, and note-taking skills are critical at this stage and in a lot of fields. Okay, let's say you want to go be a doctor. Well, sometimes you have to be able to be taking notes as a patient is talking to you. I know when I go to the doctor for myself, or with my daughter, the doctor is taking notes on what I am telling them based on the questions they're asking me. So you do need to learn and develop that skill of listening to what you are being told and being able to take notes on that. And in the lectures, there's a lot of example problems that you can refer to when you are studying and everything. And so typically speaking, the notes will be due on Thursday nights so that you're prepared for the topics that we cover in lab on Friday. The exception of this will be week 1. Obviously, I understand with everything going live on Monday that you may not be able to submit chapter 1 notes on Thursday night. That's fine, because the first experiment we do doesn't require that you've watched listen to the chapter 1 lecture. It's designed to build on and start enhancing what you already learned in 120. And in fact, not all, but a lot of chapter 1 is a review of some of the 120 topics. Actually, the first few chapters that we do will touch on your 120 topics and start to delve into them a little deeper. So you may feel like the first couple weeks of the class are like, well, we learned this in 120. You did, but now we're asking you to go another step above. Okay. All right. So usually I'll have the lectures in advance. So I'll have chapter 1 up Monday, and then by Wednesday I'll have chapter 2 up. That way, if you need to watch chapter 2 over the weekend, instead of Monday through Thursday, it'll be there for you. So you will have the weekend before. So, you can't watch Monday through Thursday if you're working or taking other classes. Totally understandable. But you do need to have those lectures done by Thursday night so that when I'm talking and introducing the lab on Friday, you're not going, huh? What does she mean by that? I've never heard that term before. Well, it was in the lecture. Okay. All right. So again, notes at the end of each chapter, you're submitting those notes. Now, here's the thing about the notes. I expect to see that you've actually taken notes, both on what I have verbally said, what's on the slides, maybe you mark up an image, and I need to see that you've solved those example problems. That is part of the note-taking experience. Okay, so I'm looking for that. If you don't have the example problem solved, you won't get credit for your notes. All right, because the example problems are part of the note-taking experience. And there's some example problems where I won't solve the whole thing. I'll give you one to try and then just give you the final answer so that you can actually check your understanding along the way. Because that is really important. You have to be able to do problems independently. If you only ever copy somebody else's solution, whether from a lecture or from a worked out example in the textbook or from a tutor, all right? I've had that happen. I've had students come to my office before with, this much work done and trying to get the last little bit done and come to find out that they don't even know where to start on that last little bit because the tutor did everything else for them. Okay. The fields that you all want to go into if you are taking a course like this require that you can work through problems independently. So part of the goal of this course is not just to teach you chemistry, but it's also to help you learn and develop those problem solving skills so that when you are faced with something that you have never seen before, you know how to start logically breaking it down so that you can actually work the problem. And sometimes it's a struggle, and it's supposed to be. All right. But again, I keep saying this. If you struggle with it, if you work through it, it is very rewarding when it finally clicks. Okay. And we all struggle. I have things I'm not very good at that I struggle with, and I work at it. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter. She gets to things that, she's not very good at yet. And sometimes she gets frustrated. And I've been trying to teach her perseverance. And she says to me, Mommy, what's that word that you're teaching me? The one that means we keep working even when it's hard? Salar, perseverance, kiddo, perseverance. And so that's the key. Maybe, make that your theme this semester, perseverance. Keep working even when it's hard. Okay? And when you're completely stuck, office hours. And if you can't make my office hours, email me. We'll figure out a meeting time. Okay? We'll get you through this, but you got to work. All right. So I'm looking, to see that you've actually engaged with that stuff. I do provide the lecture slides on Canvas. Some students like to download the lecture slides and take notes on those. Some students like to use separate paper. Some students like to load their lecture slides onto an iPad or a tablet PC and then, use like some sort of Apple Pencil or a stylus device. I don't care how you do it. It's completely up to you. If you are struggling with the note taking and you want advice on how to take better notes or things like that, can absolutely help you with that. Okay. All right. Lab work, you have to come prepared. That's part of the making sure that you've watched the background in the lectures. And then there's going to be a pre-lab that you have to do. We'll cover this in more detail when I talk about the lab stuff. On Friday, if you haven't prepped your pre-lab for the second half of class, I'm actually going to give you some class time Friday morning after I do some of the intro stuff to write your pre-lab and be ready to do that afternoon's work. Okay. Lab has to be done during your regularly scheduled lab time. Can't do lab at home. If you have an extenuating circumstance and you have to miss class, then we have to work out some makeup for you. We do have availability in our department for you to contact another instructor that teaches in the same classroom and ask them if you can come make up the lab with them. It's limited availability. Like if you miss class, in week 3, you can't make the lab up in week 6 because all the materials will have been put away, and that's too much extra work on my lab tech's part to go pull everything all over again. So as soon as you know you have to miss class, we do need to, figure that situation out, but don't miss class. Be there, do your lab. Okay. We'll talk about lab reports in a completely separate talk because there's going to be a lot of things. This isn't your worksheet. Well, there will be a few worksheet labs, but for the most part, this isn't just your worksheet labs you did at 120. Now we're going to start writing lab reports. Okay, there's a few things that you really need to make sure. So when I grade like your lab notebook pages, I'll be looking for specific things like, during lab, did you follow safety rules? Did you record your data correctly? And if those were not followed, then you'll be deducted points on your laboratory data portion of your lab report score. Okay, one thing that you absolutely need to remember, okay, is I am your instructor. All right. I'm not your maid. I'm not your housekeeper. My lab tech staff, they are there to support you by making sure you have the materials to do the lab, but they are also not your maids or your housekeepers. If they have to spend all their time cleaning the labs, we won't be able to do labs because they won't have time to prep the labs. You must absolutely be on top of, everything in the lab and keep it clean. It's also a safety issue. If everything's dirty and contaminated, that creates a real big safety hazard as well. Okay. We will have a much more in-depth talk about safety on the first day of class. And there's a whole safety contract that you have to sign per the department that I have to keep on file that shows that you have read through and acknowledged the safety rules that exist in the department. Okay. Our lab is all day, so we will have a morning session and an afternoon session. Again, normally this lab is 2 days a week, so we're one long day. So we'll have a morning session and an afternoon session. I'm not going to delineate the times on this ahead of time because we may have a situation where our morning session goes a little longer and then we break and then we have a slightly shorter afternoon session. It's just going to kind of depend a little bit on if we are doing one long lab during the period, or if we have two shorter activities scheduled, or if we have an activity in the morning and an exam in the afternoon. So lunch will be around the same time each Friday, but I can't say for certain that every Friday will break exactly at 11 o'clock for lunch. Maybe one Friday we'll break at 11, but maybe the next Friday, we break at 11:20. All right, so it'll be around the same time. We will break for a half hour. If we're doing a long activity, you can leave everything in your hood at a good stopping point. You don't have to completely clean up. And then they'll come back and keep working in the afternoon. If we are doing two activities, then you must be completely cleaned up as though you are not coming back for the day at the end of the morning session. And then you will do a completely new setup for the afternoon session. Okay. During the lunch break, the lab will be locked. So if you want to leave things in there, you are welcome to, but anything you want with you during lunch, you will need to take with you because I'm going to lock the lab and I'm going to go to a different area of the department so that I can eat my own lunch. If I leave the room unlocked, then students can come in, but you can't do lab work if I'm not there. And so I have to lock the room in order for myself to be able to go have an actual lunch period. And I have to be able to eat as well. You definitely, you don't want Professor Stanfield at 2:30 p.m. with low blood sugar about ready to pass out because I had no lunch break. That would not work well. All right. So that's the way we're going to work that. Our schedule has 3 exams and a final exam scheduled. You have to be there for exams. I can only deal with makeups in extreme extenuating circumstances because scheduling a makeup is a lot of logistics of working with one of my colleagues, trying to figure out who can proctor you. So it's not a light matter to miss an exam. Like I was tired and I did not want to take the exam is not a reason to miss the exam. Or I don't feel like I had enough time to study. Again, not a reason to miss the exam. I was in a car accident on the way to campus and I have absolutely no transportation. Okay, that's a reason to miss the exam. Or, I am running a fever of 102. Also a reason to miss the exam. Okay. Again, real extenuating circumstances happen. I will work with those. It's a logistical nightmare, but I will work with them. But arbitrary reasons for missing the exams, no, there won't be a makeup for that. Okay. Again, exams are done during the laboratory period, so you will take your exams in person during the lab period. This is not just because we have a hybrid class. The exams for Chem 141 and 142 are always given in the lab period, regardless if you have an in-person lecture or not. Okay, we do this so that you have just a longer time to take the exam. I don't write a 3-hour exam. I write an exam that's meant to be for like an hour 20, hour 30-minute session, but then I give you the whole, longer period of time to take it. So we'll see how that works out with this extra long block lab period. You'll be given one unmarked periodic table for each exam. And I do allow you to bring one-sided page of notes to the regular midterms. The final will have different rules associated with it because we will either be taking a common departmental final or we will be taking an American Chemical Society standardized final. I don't know which this semester. Last semester we did the ACS final. I am an adjunct, so I don't always find out those things until partway through the semester. So I'll let you know as soon as I know if we're doing departmental final or ACS final. But for the 3 midterms, I do allow you to have one-sided page of notes that you can bring in to the exam with you. You can type them, you can write them. The only thing you can't do is make them so small that you need a magnifying glass. Quizzes will be done over Canvas. There will be a quiz for each chapter we cover. You get 2 opportunities. I do use a random number generator though. So if you use the second opportunity, study what you got wrong, learn how to do the problem, and then go back and try the quiz again because you'll get new numbers. Again, you have to be in lab. You can't do lab experiments at home. If you are excessively absent from lab, then I'm going to have to drop you from the class, even if you are watching the online lectures. This is a lecture and a lab course combined together. You have to be present for both parts. Okay. Email, typically speaking, oh, I forgot to change this. Sorry. I update my syllabus. I have the same basic stuff in each semester. I forgot to update this to spring break. But basically, if you send me stuff during the week, I will typically get to it within 24 hours. If you send it early in the morning, you'll usually get a same-day message from me. If you send it later in the afternoon, it's more likely that you won't hear from me until the next morning. If you send it on Friday or during the weekend, well, Friday, I guess, doesn't really matter for us because we're in class all day Friday. If you send me an email during class on Friday, I might see it or I might be, dealing with your classmates. But if you send an email over the weekend, most likely I will get to it on Monday morning. Occasionally, I will get to my computer during the weekend, but it's not a guarantee, so don't expect responses from me until Monday. And then obviously the exception to this is spring break, not fall break, spring break. We have the whole week off, so I'm only going to sporadically check email. Here is the grading scale. I've delineated exactly what constitutes, A minus, plus, etc. for you so that you see where that's broken down. Grossmont, if you're not familiar with our district, we do use a plus minus system. Some districts do, some districts don't. It's like I also teach at the San Diego City College District, and we don't have a plus minus system there. Everything is a flat grade, but we do use the plus minus system in the Grossmont-Cuyamaca district, so there you go. Now, keep in mind, you have to pass both portions of the class. If you have less than 50% average on the exams, but everything else is kept you to a passing grade, I cannot pass you along to 142. If you cannot score a minimum 50% on the exams, you will not be successful in 142. You won't have the background necessary and you won't be able to actually follow and do the work for 142. That's why that's there. It's not there to be mean or evil. It's there because if you can't do the exams, you just won't be successful the next class because everything we do builds on it to the next topic. And so if you can't get through the exams in 141, you won't be able to in 142. Okay. And then on the flip side, if you have less than 50% average on the experiments, I can't pass you to the next course because that shows that you did not successfully complete the laboratory portion of the course because this is a lecture and a lab. You got to do both. Okay. I use a weighted averaging. So exams are 35% of your grade, notes are 5%. Yes, you are graded on turning those notes in. Homework is 10%. This is standard in the department. Labs are 25%, quizzes are 10%, and the final exam is 15%. Okay. Don't cheat. I have a whole list. This is not an exhaustive list of things that constitutes cheating. It gets longer every semester as I see things that have happened. And so I specifically call those out in this list. But here's a whole bunch of, examples of cheating. Don't cheat. It's annoying to deal with. Usually there's tears involved. I don't like it. I want you to be successful. I don't want to give you a zero because you cheated. I don't enjoy that. That does not bring me satisfaction or joy or anything like that. I hate that. It makes me very sad when students cheat and they're not going to be successful going forward. All right. Um, but don't have unauthorized material, in the exam. You get one-sided page of notes. You try to bring in a two-sided page of notes, that's cheating. Okay. Copying other people's work, that's cheating. Copying other people's lab data, that's cheating. Doing homework together and having one person do it and the other person copy it, that's cheating. Um, Bringing something programmable into an exam, that's cheating. Using your phone, submitting false work. So like if you don't show up to lab and then you make up lab data and you turn in a lab report, that's cheating. And that's really bad in the scientific community. Don't do that. Um, Using Chegg, Course Hero, Coursera, I don't know, Quizlet. I can't keep track of all of those, but going on those and submitting something and waiting for somebody to do it for you and then copying that, that is cheating. And you will not be able to do the exams if you do that. Okay? You have to do the work. It is hard. It is a struggle, but you have to do it. Okay? Um, Lab reports. I can tell when you didn't do your lab report and you copied it off someone from Chegg, especially the worksheet labs. It's very easy to tell when somebody answered everything for you online and didn't actually do the lab themselves. Paying someone else to do your homework, AI, Chat GPT, all of those things, totally 100% strictly forbidden. You are going into a STEM field. You have to be able to think. Okay? For this course, generating a transcript of the lecture notes via YouTube and then trying to pass that off as your own lecture notes. Also cheating. And also, it's really easy to tell when somebody submits a YouTube transcript. Yeah, there's a lot of tells in it. Okay. We've got tutoring available. I'll have more information about this as I get it about hours and availability. But we do have a tutoring availability. It's awesome. We've had tutoring and then there's kind of a lag and now we've been building it back up again. So tutoring is available. If you have accessibility issues, get that to me ASAP. I can't help you with accessibility stuff if you hand it to me 5 minutes before we have an exam or something. All right, get it to me. Okay. Um, COVID, there's optional masking and all sorts of stuff. The campus updates its COVID guidelines. So I put some links in here so that you can go directly to the campus guidelines if you end up positive for COVID, and follow those guidelines. Okay. Additional information, there's some basic things here. I've linked like the Grossmont basic needs, Gizmo's kitchen and things like that, because we do have a basic needs department. It's like if you're food insecure or you need hygiene products or things like that, we actually have a lot of that stuff on campus available. We've got a lot of really good resources if you're in need. Okay. And then, things could happen. So I do reserve the right to make changes to the syllabus or the classes I see fit. For the record, the last time I had to make a major change to a syllabus was in March of 2020 when COVID hit and we had to completely change our entire modality for everything. So making a major syllabus change is not anything that's common, but in the event that something insane and unexpected happens again, I do reserve the right to make changes. And if that happens, obviously, we will all know that something major is going on, and I will communicate everything to you either in person or over Canvas, etc. You won't be left in the dark. Okay. All right, so there's our syllabus. And then let me just show you briefly our schedule. And this stuff is all going to be available for you on Canvas, so you can download it at any point. Okay, so our first week lecture is going to be intro stuff. So yay, intro stuff. And then all of our chapter 1. Lab, we'll check into lab, we'll, review lab safety guidelines and some sort of, and all that stuff. I'll give you some time to make sure you're prepared for the second half of lab. We'll talk about lab report guidelines. If you have not purchased your lab manual or your lab notebook prior to class on Friday, you will have time to go run to the bookstore and purchase it on Friday morning. I highly recommend you getting it before Friday morning, but I will give you time to go get it on Friday. Okay? Because normally you have like a 48-hour turnaround after the first lab period before we jump into doing our first lab experiment. This course, we have like a 2-hour turnaround. So try to be prepared, try to have it before you come to class. But if you don't, I understand life is busy, bookstore lines get long during the first week. So I will give you some time Friday morning to go purchase the stuff if you don't have time to get it before class. And then we will do our first experiment. Week 2, we'll do chapter 2. Now, here's the thing. We're losing an entire week of lab because week 2, Friday, is a holiday. So we will meet this Friday, or not this Friday, it's tomorrow. We will meet the first week Friday because I'm recording this the week before classes start. So we will meet the first Friday of class. And then the second Friday of class, we actually don't have class. It is a holiday. There's no class. Okay. And then we'll be plugging forward for the rest of the semester. So we've got chapter 3, experiment 8. This one's really cool. I love the reactions to copper lab. This is normally a 2-day experiment, so we're doing it all in one day. This is really cool. You're going to get a piece of copper wire. You're going to dissolve it in some really strong acid. You're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. And then at the end, you're going to precipitate back out solid copper. It's really cool. I love this one. Okay. We'll do some stuff with conductivity. When we get to week 5, this is one of those situations where we will have 2 activities. So experiment 6 and experiment 7, these are typically 1-day experiments. So for us, they'll be 1-session experiments. So the morning session will be a dry activity, and then the afternoon session, you'll actually do a wet lab. The week after that, we will do our experiment 9. Now, because we lost an entire week due to the holiday, normally experiment 9 actually is a longer experiment. Some of that is cleanup setup time. So we're going to have our first exam that day. So this one, I will probably in class give you some instructions about how I am going to shorten it a little bit so that we can fit it, so we can still do it, but fit it into just one session. Okay. And then all of our exams will be in the afternoon session. The reason why I'm doing it this way is so that way, once you finish the exam, you will be free to go. You don't have to loiter around on campus, wait for the afternoon session, then come back and do the afternoon session. So we'll do the lab session in the morning, we'll break for lunch, we'll come back after lunch, we'll take the exam, and then once you finish the exam, you can turn it in and then you can just leave. You don't have to wait around for that afternoon session. Okay. All right, and then we're gonna do some stuff with calorimetry. We'll do a workshop on lab reports. So we'll actually build our lab reports over the first few weeks of the semester where you'll work on different parts of a lab report before finally doing one giant full lab report experience. And then once you do that, we're going to do a peer review workshop where you'll bring a draft and you'll, work with your classmates, and then you'll get comments back, and then you'll have basically spring break to tweak it and adjust it before turning in your final copy. And then you'll have a few more formal lab reports to do after that. Okay. And then we'll do an atomic spectral lab. We come back after spring break. Periodicity is a short experiment, so we'll do some post-break review. We'll do like an in-class activity just to kind of get back in the swing of things. I almost put exam 2 right after spring break, but I decided not to do that. I put it the week after. So we'll probably have like the problem set, like review packet to work on in the morning session to get you ready for that second exam the following week. Okay, molecular structure is a long experiment, and chapter 11 is a long chapter. So what will happen when we get to this point in the semester is that you will have half your notes for chapter 11 due the Thursday before we start molecular structure, and then you'll have the other half due before on the Thursday before we do the rest of the molecular structure lab. That way you can do part of it, and then we have an exam, and then you'll finish off the rest, and then you can finish off the rest of the experiment. Okay, we'll do a cool experiment where you're going to be given an unknown acid and some information about the potential different acids, and you'll do a whole bunch of experimenting to then figure out what your unknown is. You'll do a lot of that in 142, where you have to figure out unknown things. So we're going to do a little bit of that here. We'll talk about solutions, and then we're going to learn about equilibrium to finish off our semester. Some schools finish off first semester with kinetics. Other schools finish off first semester with equilibrium. We are a school that finishes off first semester with equilibrium. And so we're going to have a couple of experiments that deal with equilibrium. Experiment 17, we do this thing with Le Chatelier's principle. So the morning session, you'll do all the various different Le Chat experiments. And then in the afternoon session, you and your lab group will get up and present one of the equilibria. So you'll have the day to work on your stuff, put your little presentation together, and then you'll get up and talk about it. So that one's fun. And then we will then do a computer simulation the following week. So when we start off experiment 17, I do a demo with a cobalt 2 chloride solution where it goes between pink and blue. It's really cool. But we do it qualitatively, not quantitatively. And then we learn more about equilibrium and we start to, be able to pair the qualitative with the quantitative. And so we do a computer simulation the following week to go back and look at that demo that I did, but on a computer simulation and start to put some numbers to it to tie it all together. And then we take our third exam. And then for the last week, because we don't have a finals week anymore, we take our final exams in our last class period. We're not going to have any new lecture material that last week. Everything will be finished up in week 15. And then our last Friday that we meet together in the morning session, you will do a presentation on an element that I will give more information about when we do experiment 12. And then we'll break for lunch. We'll come back. We will take our final exam, and then you'll be done with the semester. If we take, it's cumulative for the whole semester. If we take the ACS exam, it's a 110-minute exam. If we take a departmental final, it might be a 120-minute exam. I will find out from the department if we are doing the ACS exam or not as soon as I can. I haven't been told that information yet. So as soon as I know it, I will communicate that with you, how the final exam will go. Okay. And again, tentative schedule, I reserve the right to make changes as needed, and I'll let you know if changes get made. I have had to make schedule changes before. Things happen. I mean, I remember one summer I was teaching and they were doing work on the campus, and one of the contractors accidentally severed the main electric feed into campus, and the whole campus lost all power. And I would think it was like a Wednesday, and it was a Monday through Thursday summer class. And I had to, and this was early Wednesday, I had to send my students home, and they didn't get the power back on until over the weekend. So we basically lost 2 days of our summer class. So I had to make some tweaks to the schedule there because, that sort of craziness happened. So the extenuating circumstances happen, life happens. I know it's like all come to class, no makeups. Okay. No makeups for I just didn't feel like coming to class, right? Because that's a pain in the butt. But things do happen. And so if extenuating circumstances present themselves, talk to me. I can't help you if you disappear on me and you don't talk to me. I can do my best to try and help you. If you keep me in the loop, communicate with me. I want you to be successful. And so talk to me, communicate with me. Don't just disappear. Okay? All right. Well, that is our syllabus. That's our intro. There will be some further details on what's going to happen with lab and all of that stuff that we will talk about in lab. I will have the PowerPoint presentations up on Canvas for you though. So if you do wish to start thumbing through those so that you are prepared when we get to lab on Friday so that we can have a smooth experience on Friday and actually successfully get through that first experiment Friday afternoon, That would be fantastic. That would be in your best interests to be as prepared as possible before showing up on Friday, since we do need to do our first experiment Friday afternoon. I'm not used to not having that 48-hour turnaround with 2-day week lab. I'm used to like, all right, it's Tuesday. Let's introduce all this stuff. Cool. Now make sure you're prepared because we're going to start experiments on Thursday. Instead, it's, hi, it's Friday morning. We're doing our first experiment Friday afternoon. So it'll be a little bit different experience. It'll be a learning experience for all of us doing this block lab. All right. So I look forward to meeting all of you on Friday, seeing you face to face. That will be fantastic. And I look forward to a really good semester together and dive on in, get going. Let's do some chemistry.